Good morning, Rachel. You can mute everybody so we have none of
Yep.
these funny Zoom fiascos. And welcome. So as this week we've been talking a lot about like messaging and communication. And if you didn't check out Angela's interview yesterday, I suggest you do. She talked a lot about how she messages and works gifting with her clients, right? But one thing I want to share is authenticity, right? Who here has ever said this to their client? There are record low interest rates right now. Let's take advantage while they last. Have we all like kind of just raise your hand, know that this story's been going on for like, it seems like endless years, like every year it's another year. And you're like, the feds can't keep these rates like this forever, right? And I remember towards the end of the last few houses I sold, actually sharing this with somebody. And I remember calling someone and telling them like you should really refinance. And they said to me, Shrag, I thought those were the record low interest rates, right? And that's the narrative, right? And you guys are probably all thinking like, what the hell does this have to do with authentically communicating through Marketing Center? Let me share this with you. Here's a real life scenario. A client buys a home on what you told them that was a record low interest rate. Think about how many clients we've all sold homes to over the last several years on like record low interest rates. Buyer gets a mass email from the agent sharing record low interest rate. Now's the time to buy with a rate lower than theirs. How would you feel? This happens all the time because we're not thinking about how we're marketing. It's called crisis care. We send emails and marketing because we're like, oh my God, I got to send out a newsletter. Oh my God, I got to communicate with everyone. And we haven't done any of the back work, right? If you go back to Monday's session, about the CRM and how valuable it is to actually think through who you're communicating with and communicate with them in a meaningful way. So let's go through this. The challenge with non-segmented mass communication, right? Number one, it could be not relevant, right? There's 259 billion emails a day that are sent. Why should somebody open yours? I know from working at Compass, like the way that the CRM works, I'm subscribed to thousands of agents' emails. I have agents that sometimes will send me 3 emails in a row about an open house they're going to have. Do you think that's really relevant to me? No, it could be tone deaf too. With some of the things going on today, you could be having the most amazing day while there are riots in the Capitol, and you could be writing, this is a wonderful day, and to somebody, it's not wonderful. It can be commoditized, right? You have people that open up their entire lives to you, right? Nothing says non-intimate like a mass email, right? Like, you don't want people to feel like a commodity. Rachel, I have a few screens up here. What does the fourth one say?
It says less thoughtful.
It's less thoughtful. When we want somebody's business, we are very thoughtful of every last single detail. The goal of having meaningful relationships and utilizing these tools in a way that's productive and profitable is having clarity, right? Clarity of being just as thoughtful after, excuse me, as you were during the sale. Here's the solution. Market your message to segments versus the masses. Understand the journey of your customer and take tactical action. So those will be your concepts for the day. Segments equal tags, right? So think about it like this. All of you dog lovers on this call, in our CRM, we should send something out that says, who loves Bruno? And every person that responds, we should put a dog tag. We should find out every person that owns a dog, right? So if we were going to send out gifts to people, or we found something really cool about dogs, right? We should segment it and send it out to all those people. We know cat people necessarily aren't dog people. And then there's the third group of people that just don't want animals altogether, right? Does anyone know some of those people? I really thought my parents loved me till they told me one time I couldn't come to their house with their dog. I'm like, Dad, but there's like no power, no anything. Like, we can't do this. He's like, well, he goes, can't you put your dog somewhere? And I realized at that point, there really, truly are people that don't like pets. So are these really your segments, right? This looks pretty logical, right? Buyers, sellers, centers of influence, and past clients. Hit yes if you think these are a good way to segment your clients. see these numbers are slowly coming in today. Well, here's the interesting part. 0 to 1, you're right. It's a loaded question. Yes and no. Buyers, there's 3 types of buyers. There's somebody buying a house for the first time, there's a move-up buyer, and there's an investor. So if we go back to our original concept of mass communication, do you think the same message may be relevant for all 3 of these people? No. Somebody that's already bought a house and is moving has a completely different experience than the person buying a house for the first time. So that buyer gets all that first time home buyer, they're gonna be like, why am I getting all this stuff? Right? And then really what that does is you're better off not even sending them an email because it's tone deaf, it's not relevant, it's not personal. If somebody is a first time buyer and you're sending them all this stuff about investments and selling and buying and moving for more space, how do you think that person feels? So I want you guys to write these 3 tags down, right? For how, when you tag a buyer in your CRM, like in a group, start using these tags: first time buyer, move up buyer, investor. Sellers, there's somebody selling their house for the first time. What I find truly fascinating in all my years of real estate and in speaking with thousands of agents all around the country is if somebody's buying a house, I wish I had a pop-up picture of a red carpet that goes out. Oh, you're buying your first home. Do you want me to put you in touch with a lender, an attorney, an inspection person? You know, would you like me to walk you through the process? What can I do to help you? If somebody's selling their house for the first time, man, most people do nothing for this person. They show up, they give them a lot of information. I'm going to do this, 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 this. Where's their timeline? Where's their process? Where's that same exact concept as somebody selling their house? People seem to think people that sell their house for the first time just because they bought one understand what it's like. Empty nesters, that's a completely different conversation. And people that are selling and buying, that's a whole nother conversation. So put these tags in your CRM. Are you guys kind of seeing how we're thinking through this now a little bit differently? Tactical, right? Past clients, 3 ways. And this you should really get micro on. Their geographic location. You definitely know when you're in a transaction with them, their personal interests. Family status, right? Are they single? Do they have kids? Are they older kids? Like, based on that, you'll be able to pull other sub segments, but you'll know kind of what to start sending people. Same thing with centers of influence, past clients. These are all ways to segment stuff. And in an asterisk, I want you guys to write, because I see some of you writing, Google Alerts. And before someone writes in the chat, how do I set up a Google Alert? Go into Google and type in Google Alerts, and you can click the link and it'll walk you right through the whole thing, right? So as you're doing this, you can set up Google Alerts and you could literally get information delivered to your inbox. You can filter it and you could send it to people. So let's talk about authentic messages for buyers and sellers, right? Now, this is where Marketing Center comes really in handy, right? What's the difference between Marketing Center and a bulk email? Bulk email is not going to be as nice and graphical and as branded as what you could send in Marketing Center. But you can create your own newsletters, your own stuff, right? So if you want to take it on your team members or yourself, there's sites like Envato, Envato, Elements. It's like $100 or $200. You could download a subscription for a full year and have access to thousands of stock images, right? So you can pull great stock photography to use in your newsletters. And you should start with FAQs for these people, right? Some frequently asked questions are great, right? That's people want information. Second, should ask questions. This is where you really have an opportunity to share your value proposition. So someone give me an example of, let's go to a first-time buyer, right? somebody's buying a home. What's like an FAQ, something that they, normally ask, like, should I get pre-qualified or some, stuff along that lines? And someone just unmute themselves. And what's a should ask question? What's a question they really should ask? And I want us all to think through this concept together.
Do I have to have 20% down?
That's a good question to ask. They should be asking that, right? Because a should ask question is based on the area I'm buying. Thank you, Heidi. Based on the area that I'm buying in, is down payment really going to be a factor, right? There's some areas and some price points that if you don't put 20% down, even if you have 10% down and you have a higher bid, they might not take it, right? So you want to get an idea of the should ask questions, but these are the things that really show off your expertise. And then the other one, right? Let's start using this time to collaborate in the chat box to start putting how can you add value, right? There's 53 people on the call. If every person adds one thing on here of how they could add value, now we have a real list that we can pull off of, right? Like, what are additional ways that you can add value to buyers and sellers besides FAQ, should ask questions, right? I'll throw the first one, right? Community events. Like, if somebody has bought in an area, it's really nice, especially if they have young kids, they're the entertainment committee. I would love it if somebody sent me an email every week telling me somewhere I could bring my kids to entertain them. What else do you guys think?
Colleen says, go through the buying process from beginning to end. Janice says, create a vendor list. Matt says, market reports. Amber says, seasonal home care tips and kit. Melissa says, a list of schools in the area. Those are all great.
Yep. So if you live and you sell a lot in one area, right? Well, this is not as valid today, but it will be soon enough when COVID's over. What are all the things that your town does, right? A lot of public libraries in areas have so much programming for kids now. And they've done a lot of virtual stuff. We see a couple more coming in, Rachel.
So Patrick says restaurants market, farmers market. Justin says price negotiability for price point and step-by-step process. Melissa says know the correct insurance and inspectors needed. Jacqueline says a list of great restaurants in the area. Claudia says invite them to local Facebook, Instagram groups. Best hairdressers, secret caterers, best parks, good massage therapist. Yes, please. Places to donate items when cleaning out your house. These are all great ideas.
So no one should stay here after today. I don't know what to send people. This is how you do it to Marketing Center. You pick a group of people and start sending stuff to them, right? And you don't need to send stuff all the time. Make your emails meaningful, right? Past client centers of influence. Think about what their personal interests are, right? We've categorized it. I'll categorize dogs as a personal interest. Some people might like golf, cars, and like just what a lot of you guys said, explore, experience, dine, right? Like, if I'm moving somewhere, where can I go? What can I do? And what's the best food? Food never gets old. Now, here's your tip on sharing food. Have you ever gone and just raise your hand and think about this? How many people have been recommended a restaurant, and then you go there and be like, great, what's so great about this place? I'm looking at a menu filled with options. And people have a hard time making decisions. So like, if you're going to do like a foodie Friday for your people, or like your pick of the week, make sure when you go there to talk about what you loved, right? Like, what was your favorite thing? What's one thing you recommend? I always like, if I'm going to do this, asking the waiter or the waitress, or even if you're calling to order it, like, what's one great thing that people love here that people wouldn't think of ordering or don't really associate with this place? You find all these hidden gems that way. If you're in an area like New York or a metro area that's cold, outdoor restaurants that have heating, right? Places have outdoor seating. And guys, keep going back to this same concept. How can you add value? So before you ever hit the send button again, I want you to ask yourself this question. Will it go through those four things? Like, will this make somebody feel commoditized? Will this make them feel that you don't care? Will this be not relevant? And is this tone deaf in some way to the people that I'm communicating with? So this is what you always want to think about. Regardless of your segment, where are they today? Where are they looking to go? How can I help them get there? And Rachel, you could read me the last box.
What message do they need to hear?
What do they need to hear? And that's one I really want to touch upon before we move forward. What do people need to hear? Think about all the things going on in the world. Every conversation, whether it's through phone, email, text, the video, you have an opportunity to bring something different to somebody's days. People's views of the world and each other are more fragmented than you ever could imagine. I was saying this to my wife the other day. I said, you know what's interesting? We went to a car dealer to look at a car, and the guy was like trying to run a fast one on me, right? Like the car had 5,000 miles. He wanted to lease it. And he was telling me, well, normally if you lease a car that has some miles on it, it's based on the MSRP, and the MSRP is of a car that has 5,000 miles. He's like, well, technically speaking, he goes, it's not categorized that because it's never been driven. I'm like, well, it has 5,000 miles. He goes, well, it was a manager, whatever the heck the guy said. I go, but the car was still driven, right? So I go, as soon as you hit a button in the computer, it goes to me. Now the value goes down by about 10, 15%, and the car never changed. And I said, this is really just like the world today. He goes, well, what do you mean? I go, you have two people looking at the same exact thing, looking at it very differently. But yet we're both in the same place. We're all still living in the same world. So that brings me to the question is, what do the people in your life, your database, your network need to hear from you? How can you connect with them more authentically? How can you add more value? How can you make their life more easier, right? They call it the serving mindset. How can I serve my clients the same way when they're active? And when you start thinking about this, and people are always like, oh, how do I get referrals, right? I'll use Angela for an example from yesterday and the stuff that we've worked on. She's giving these people, and we built so much information throughout the buying process that these people are referring her friends before she even closes, right? Because they're getting everything they need. When was the last time you really stopped to look at your business? Go back 12 months. Where did your clients come from? What did they do? Who are they? What do they need to hear and when, right? And Marketing Center is the vehicle to do this. It's a way to make it look beautiful. It's a way to make it look elevated, luxury. And it's all can be done from either your cell phone, your computer, and just requires a little bit of thought. Remember the lifetime value of a customer for Monday. Each one of these messages will create the value for you of their lifetime. Or you could have a lifetime of a person that they want to hit the unsubscribe button to. They don't want to take their emails. They don't want to take your text messages. They don't want to take your phone calls. And then you could see their house listed with somebody else. Because if you really understood the value of each customer, every customer you have in most of these markets that we're all in has over $100,000 or more value in their lifetime. We all are so focused on new and next and more. New, next, more. How much time we focused on how do we add value? How do we have a serving mindset? How do we use the tools to create a more meaningful message with somebody? I know there's some emails that get really excited to open. I know people like reading our newsletter because, like, I don't know, Rachel, what percentage, like 50, 60% of people open it, right? And they're looking at it. But we try only to send one a week. We try to make it meaningful. We try to share a story. We like to share something of value that you could use for your business and kind of just share what's coming up. But that's what you guys want, right? What do your customers want? So Rachel, I want to share this deck out. We'll update the deck in our members portal. And I want you to look at those four things we wrote and use that as a checklist to make sure, like, if you check any of those boxes in something you're sending that could make somebody feel that way, don't send the email, go back to the drawing board. Stop sending things for the sake of sending them. And remember, in some of these markets, if you're like in San Francisco, like every other agent seems to be like a Compass agent. So if you're sending the same newsletter as everyone else, people know what takes time to curate versus something that somebody put thought and care into. And now I want to open it up for questions. Thank you.
I guess it's just always finding the time to make it happen is the biggest thing, I think.
Okay, you know what? Since you opened this door, this is perfect. I want everyone today at some point to, like, who here, 90% of you all have an iPhone, because if you don't have an iPhone to Compass, your life is very complicated. I want you to just pull that little thing down where that search thing comes up, type in screen time, and see how many hours you spend on your cell phone. It'll tell you your average daily use. When you look at how much time is sucked in this vacuum hole of non-human connection, you'll realize all the time that you need in your life, Heidi, is your face on that screen. It is literally built to be an addictive mousetrap. And if you guys haven't seen The Social Dilemma, please take a look. But the guy who's like one of like the main developers into Pinterest was talking about how he built this platform to just addict people to keep looking at it. And he goes, I realized how bad it was when I was in the closet checking my emails, looking at Pinterest when I had 2 of my kids wanting my attention. 5 hours, 3 minutes. All the tech giants don't let their kids use their cell phones or screens. I know it's a necessity for us somehow. So Heidi, we could find time within our phones, right? But a lot of this stuff is proactivity versus reactivity. We spend so much of our time like playing dodgeball, but we only feel like the ball's being thrown at us, right? So you just need to time block a time to do this once a month, block off an hour to plan out your messaging and everything else like that. And that's it, right?
I think
Set it up.
Chirag, the key word here is authentically, right? So play to everybody's strengths. Is there somebody on your team who's a foodie who knows everything? Great. Make them in charge of curating a list of restaurants you'll recommend. Is there somebody who has their kids in the public schools? Great. Make them in charge of finding all the school resources. Is there somebody who's always out and about on the town? Great. That person can, come up with a list of town activities. So if you can play to people's strengths, it maybe seems not overwhelming for one person to have to sit there and say, what's this whole content that I have to come up with all by myself? Because I know that can feel very overwhelming. Make it a collaborative process is what I would recommend. And even if you're not on a team, know those people in your life who are the foodies, so you can say, hey, like, I know you love eating out. Can you give me your 3 favorite restaurants? So you guys are so good at people. And in something like this, use your people, because you have the networks and you have the people on your team who have all these resources. So if you're not the best at sitting down and carving out time, talk to people who know.
And also,
question.
Yep, go ahead.
What do you think about turning people onto other sites? Like, there's a great site that I use all the time. It's called Mom Something. And it has all those. Do you think it's good to turn people onto other people's sites? So you think that's.
Yeah. By the way, whoever that mom site is, Corey, I'm talking to you later. Let's talk about how we can partner with them. Right.
I have a partnership with her, actually.
Okay, good. So it's something worth exploring. Yeah, it's good sharing resources, right? And the other thing is, a lot of us have accountability groups here, right? So you guys are role playing. Look, if you have 3-4 people in the group that say they want to do this, block off an hour, get on Zoom and collaborate with each other, do it together. Every day there's 50 plus of you guys that are on here doing this, which means that you guys all want to take the same journey of growth and change. So leverage the other people in this group so that you can have partners to do this, right? Because look, sitting in a room by yourself trying to figure out stuff, you can get stuck very quickly. And you could also be subject to all the crazy thoughts that your brain tells you, right? Because as soon as it starts getting hard, this is not for me, this is too much, I don't have time. We all know how these stories go. But when you're with somebody else, you can ask a question, and very likely 1 out of 4 or 5 of you will have an answer or a thought to go along with it. So we have time for one more question today. Mommy Poppins is a great site. All right, guys. Well, happy Wednesday. Tomorrow, what's on our lunch and learn for tomorrow, Rachel?
Tomorrow, we are talking to our profitability coach, Nick, who is going to give us some great tips on profitability in your business, making sure you're profitable, making sure you know when your profits are coming and how you're getting there.
So for all of us that want to know our numbers and really like run our businesses like businesses, make sure to show up tomorrow. I believe it's at 1 o'clock, Rachel?
1 o'clock East Coast time.
1 o'clock. And for everyone else, the last announcement is, if you have an admin, we have our first admin session. There are no agents allowed for the session. We want them to have space to talk amongst themselves. And the goal is how they can support you to be more productive, right? And we're going to build on that. So if you have an admin and you have not, Deborah, DEBORAH at Chirag Shah Coaching, or email myself or Rachel, either one of us, to make sure that your admin gets in. And we will see you guys tomorrow at lunch. Have a great day, everybody.